NASA is making a sample return mission. Let's do that in SFS, shall we? We begin by loading up a blueprint which I had prepared beforehand. This is going to be our recreation of the Perseverance Rover. It's not completely accurate. As you can see, we are missing the sky crane and I do mess up the landing. If you're talking about accuracy, I think I should check. I'll add a footnote. Now we are lifting off and we're going to just speed up the footage. Fun fact, the raw unedited footage of this entire 3-part mission was 1 hour and 40 minutes, which has been condensed to I think 27 minutes. So a lot of the footage has been sped up or cut. Now we've left the atmosphere and we're burning sideways to get into orbit. Now we deploy our first stage before we get into orbit so that its perigee is within the Earth's atmosphere and it begins to burn up. And there's a glitched fuel tank that somehow lost all its velocity and isn't burning up anymore. Now we are going to wait for our transfer window to Mars, which is quite close. We just time warp a little bit and there we are. So we time warp to that particular point in our orbit and we begin our burn. Now our thrust to weight ratio isn't exactly the best, so we end up missing. As you can see, just the transfer window gets teleported back. We do continue burning a little bit more, a little longer. And now we just wait for an orbit, warp back around to periapsis and do our time warp, transfer window, sorry. Also fun fact, your transfer windows are more efficient when you burn at perigee than at apogee. So now we have escaped from the Earth's gravity and we are on an encounter with Mars. Now we need to adjust our encounter and fine tune it so that we are coming closer to the planet because we are very far and we just overshot. Nice. So there, I think that should be good. That should be good enough. And now we time warp. And there's also some weird glitch about orbital decay and whatnot. We'll get to that. Now we are just going to time warp directly over there. And also there's another glitch where you can completely miss it or time warp into the atmosphere or something like that. You can see it if I'm correct in one of my earlier videos, the SFS career mode series. You can see the issue. Now we captured into Mars orbit and we are going to try and deorbit ourselves so that we are going to be going completely over Jezero crater. We are recreating the mission, so we are going to land where Perseverance in real life did, which is Jezero crater, which is a location in SFS. Now that we had to quick load because that time we overshot the Jezero crater, and as you can see, we are going to begin our deorbit burn a bit sooner than last time. Now we've captured into Mars orbit and we're going to burn a little sooner so that maybe we can get towards so that we can deorbit ourselves to Jezero crater. But it seems we're going to overshoot a little bit, so we're just going to do that. And we're trying to keep our velocity below 450 meters per second so that we don't burn up, but I forgot to deploy our stage and I forgot that we had heat shields, so I didn't need to do that. Now we enter the low atmosphere and deploy our parachutes. Now our heat shield falls away and now we just coast down to the surface. Also, we are going a little too fast for comfort. I think landing legs and wheels can survive going at 10 meters per second, 9 meters per second, but it's better to be safe than sorry. So we use our RCS to do one last minute burn to slow down to about 5 meters per second, and then we have landed on Mars at Jezero crater. And now we are going to begin collecting samples, and first we clear our debris, and now it's time to begin collecting samples. Montage, please. I said montage, please. Now we're done collecting our samples, and it's time to send our second mission of the video. We are going to send a satellite to Mars to get into low Mars orbit. This is in preparation of our final mission. This satellite is going to take our samples and it's going to take it from Mars orbit and is going to deliver it to Earth. Now we have separated our side boosters and we're on our first stage. We just left the atmosphere and now we're going to burn sideways to get into a low Earth orbit. Just like last time, we're going to separate our first stage, which runs out of fuel before we get into orbit so that it deorbits itself. We time warp over to our transfer window to Mars and we begin burning a little bit ahead so that we can potentially avoid the issue that happened last time. You can see, while I think we could have continued, it would have been best since we are moving away from our periapsis. So we wait for another orbit and we continue near perigee. And now we've escaped Earth's sphere of influence and rather Earth's gravity, and we have got an encounter with Mars. We time warp just a little bit ahead of our periapsis and we begin burning in order to slow down and get ourselves into Mars orbit. We have captured into low Mars orbit and we're just going to burn a little more. We're going to get into an orbit around just above the Martian atmosphere, around 20 to 25 kilometers. So now we've got a more or less circular orbit and we have our periapsis just above the atmosphere so that when we separate our stage, it burns up in the atmosphere. That's a lot of flashing. We're at 20 times speed. Oh my god, that's fast. And now, time to demonstrate a glitch. So, you can see our periapsis is just a few hundred meters above the surface. We begin time warping and we switch to the vehicle inside the object inside the atmosphere, which continues the time warp. And as you can see, we just instantly burn up when we stop time warping and physics takes over. But now we're going to slow down in the still frame. That's quite hot. That's still less than what the heat shield's maximum is. But it's still quite impressive since it's, I think, about more than 6 times what the Valiant engine and a fuel tank can normally survive. Now you can see there's a rover that I use for reference for these docking ports so that we can get the height to be accurate. and this is our landing stage. We lift off and we're just going to time warp over to landing, cut over to when we're landing, because I want to show you something. We separate our parachutes thing, but oh no, they are attached to the docking port, which means not only will the parachutes not be able to leave our spacecraft, which means excess excess weight, and our rover will not be able to connect to our landing vehicle, so it's quite literally useless. Now we just push it a little further, and this is a test to see if everything is going correct. So now, hopefully, now as you can see with this test, no issues would happen between the parachute and the docking port. We just finish our staging, which I didn't do in the builder menu, and lift off. So that probe up there at the very top of our rocket here, that probe is going to take our samples from Martian surface and is going to return it to Earth. It's going to take the samples that Perseverance collected from the Martian surface all the way back to Earth. We are in space and now we are going to burn sideways to get into orbit. Also, fun fact, while we are waiting here, this is the second time I'm recording this because I forgot to hit record. I'm not joking. I actually forgot to hit record and I recorded this entire 25-minute thing. Then when I went to stop it, I realized I didn't even start it to begin with. Now we're in orbit and we're going to watch our lower stage burn up in the atmosphere, and our fuel tank reaches 6,000 degrees Celsius. That's impressive. Now we time warp towards our transfer window and we begin burning. And it happens again. It seems we don't have enough thrust to weight ratio. Our thrust to weight ratio is a little bit too. It's not enough, and we actually have to do it we have to actually burn 3 times this time. But whatever, we're now on an encounter with Mars and we are going to go directly, and we're trying to directly hit Jezero crater. Ironic, we were supposed to do that with our rover and not do that with this, but since we're aiming at a very specific target, but it's in the past now. Now we begin slowing down because we need to be under 450 meters per second so that we do not burn up in the Martian atmosphere. As you can see, we do not have fuel in our lower stage, nor do we have our heat shields to protect us. So we are going to have to use our fuel sparingly here, since we are going to use this exact same stage to get us all the way back to Martian orbit from the surface. Now we are beginning to burn up a little bit, but since we are under 450 meters per second, nothing's going to happen. Now as you can see, we have overshot our target. We are going a little too fast. Horizontally, so we're going a little too fast horizontally, so we end up overshooting. And I drove the rover over to the rim of the crater so that maybe it will be a bit easier to target since it's on a flatter area. But we end up landing inside the crater itself at the edge, but still. Now our parachutes are fully opened and we are still moving at about 9 meters per second. So we just do a little last minute burn of the Valiant engine to slow ourselves down enough. Now we switch over to our rover, which you can see we're able to click on it in the default view itself. So now it's time to drive our rover over tongue twister. Nice. Now you can see that our rover does topple over quite a lot. So you can see I've implemented a genius strategy of crashing into the surface and quick loading, and then I implemented a genius strategy of using our landing legs to try and prevent us from falling over too much. You can see that by targeting our lander, we are initially more than 2,000 meters away from it, and now we are driving. We're about to be there. Yeah, we're there. Now we've arrived at it. We're about to topple over, but we managed to not. So now we are going to try and dock. It doesn't work because the lander is a little bit higher because of our landing legs. Now we are, by just retracting our landing legs a little, we're able to dock. Just ignore the rover floating. Now we transfer our samples over to our lander and also sneakily transfer some of the fuel. We need it. So we drive our Perseverance Rover away so that it doesn't get hit by debris. Separate up parachutes thing. It flies over the rover. Clear debris, and now we launch from the surface of Mars. There we go. Now that probe over there, that probe on the top of our rocket is carrying all the samples. We're going, I think, a bit too fast for the Martian atmosphere because drag is going to slow us down, but it's also quite thin, so I don't know if it matters or not. Now we are going to get our apparatus above the edge of the atmosphere, and we're going to switch to the rover. The rover is far enough from the launch vehicle that the physics doesn't get affected on the launch vehicle, so there's no drag from the atmosphere. So we can time warp up to Apoapsis and begin burning sideways to get into low Martian orbit. Our next goal is to dock with the satellite that we launched in the previous mission. Now we navigate to it and we're going to begin, just transfer to our time warp window, and we're going to begin the long process of docking. We fine tune our approach and now we are beginning. Now we stop time warping about 1.5 kilometers away, and we use the Lowne lazy method of docking. Yes, this video is inspired by Matt Lowne's videos. So I'm just going to say what Matt Lowne says. We're going to burn all our velocity relative to the object and then look towards the object and burn. And we use the RCS on the satellite to precisely dock. We transfer over the fuel so that we have enough to get back to Earth. As you can see, we have plenty. Now we separate it so that our launch vehicle is able to burn in the atmosphere. Do you notice anything a bit weird? So I'm focused right now on thinking, can we try landing on Olympus Mons? And you can see we're going right over the famous mountain. Not able to land though. And now we are going to try and use that method again. Let's see what happens, how hot we get. Let's see how hard we get. And as you can see, our satellite goes over the rover and it comes just inside the physics range, so it starts applying the atmospheric heating on it and it burns up. But wait a minute, where's our satellite? Where's our satellite? Where is it? Wait, what's that thing over there? Right? What's that? Oh, there's our satellite. Oh, fancy. Cool, it's burning up. What happened? So now we are going to save ourselves from our predicament, since I don't know how we got there. So we just burn and we have a little bit of an eccentric orbit, but it's fine. We don't want to spend too much fuel. Now we cut back to what happened. So you can see our orbit is completely fine over here. And now we time warp. And then when we switch to map view, you can see right above it, the tiny little triangle is our satellite that's just somehow gone. You can see just disappears out of frame for a second. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. And we saved it. And you can see right here, right there. Now we just clear our debris and time warp to our transfer window. We've begun our transfer over and just suddenly disappears in the middle. So we're trying to get over to we just got our Earth encounter and we're using our RCS to get it precisely. You can see we are getting an encounter with the moon. So I'm thinking here, maybe we can try using the moon as like a gravity assist. It'll look really cool for the video, right? Where we can try and get it to, where we can use the moon's gravity to get us on close enough to Earth that we intersect the atmosphere. You can see I time warp much closer to the Earth, so you can see 1 kilometer above the surface. 250 meters above the surface. Still, we are not able to. It's an ultimatum. Either crash into the moon's surface and get an encounter and intersect with the Earth's atmosphere. Ain't happening. Or we just leave the moon entirely. Now we'll leave our re-entry module and you can see it's kind of orbiting around the satellite because of the docking port's magnetism. Now we are going to do something quite interesting with the satellite, which I believe NASA might also do. It's doing that with its regular satellites and it's just suddenly spinning. It's doing that with satellites like the OSIRIS-REx mission. So we are going to do it here too. So since you slowed it down, we are able to focus on our re-entry module first. And this is actually the second attempt. Because the first attempt, I don't know how it got that awesome. How it does actually goodness. But the first attempt I wasn't paying attention to our orientation and it ended up tipping a little, probe burnt up. So I quick loaded and now we're back here. And you can see I'm just stuck in the map view, keeping our orientation, and our maximum temperature is 4200 degrees Celsius. Relatively toasty. So now we are at a point where we're slowed down enough that it doesn't matter our orientation, and we deploy our parachute and we've landed successfully on the Earth with our samples with lots of juicy science. And when we recover, you can see all these challenges that we've completed, since this is on a completely new world, new sandbox world. And just look at our mission log. How many things. Now we go to our satellite and we are going to time warp towards our closest approach, which I have chosen 100 kilometers above the Earth's surface. We are going to slow down and get into a 100 by 100 orbit around the Earth. This satellite will have a new life around Earth, doing all kinds of science missions. Oh, and we're getting into a circular orbit. Perfectly circular orbit. With that, we've reached the end of the video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.